Hi, everyone. Welcome to eLearnChat, where you always learn something new. I'm Rick Zanotti, and I am joined today by our good friend and co-host, Lesley Price. She is with learnappeal.org.uk. It is a great charity. Please do check them out. learnappeal.org.uk. Give her something to do. She doesn't want to be bored. She wants to be really busy. So anyway, how are you doing today, Lesley?
Oh, I'm very good. So as you know, Rick, Thursday for me is granny duty.
Grandson
So I
Day.
have been looking after, and my little grandson is now 1 year old. He was 1 year old on Monday.
Yep.
And so he's been playing today with all his new toys
Yeah, time to get to
Granny
work.
Lesley bought him.
He needs a job.
Yeah. All cars. Fire engines,
All the fun
ambulances,
stuff.
brum brum, nino nino.
Yep. Anyway, that's great. And in studio, we've got Harold Muliati. He's our video producer running the show right now. And by the way, we are right now live on LinkedIn. So it's LinkedIn Live. So if you're watching on LinkedIn, we put out the invite before. Get involved, ask questions. We've got a great guest today. He's a good friend, Josh Cavalier. He'll be joining us in a moment. Here we go. This show is sponsored by Relate Corporation. Digital learning development, media development, corporate video, management consulting, and more. Visit us at www.relate.com. Thanks. Now, in our center position of power, we've got Josh Cavalier. He's an e-learning specialist. He's been around for a long time. He's a video guy. He is a speaker. He does it all. And he's really good. He's also a medical illustrator, that's not an easy job.
How do you remember that? How do you remember that stuff, Rick?
I remember a lot of things, and because I've always thought that was
Rick,
really fascinating.
He's still got daylight outside. It's absolutely pitch black in the UK now.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
after 6:30 at night.
That's true. But anyway, Josh, how have you been?
Excellent. Yeah, everything's been going great. Relatively speaking, I think, based upon the conditions that are out there, I've been staying busy, trying to do positive work, and trying to maintain what's going on as far as video creation and what companies and individuals are trying to do, especially with video learning and online training. See that explosion happening and trying to wrap my arms around all the various ways that folks are taking advantage of different platforms. So it's been the last 6-7 months have been pretty crazy to try to follow all that.
Which actually corresponds to COVID and all the other stuff going on.
Yeah.
So I imagine, because we're all in the same boat, sort of. The need for conferencing, teleconferencing, video conferencing, video work, video training, it's really just shot through the roof in many cases.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things is that you have companies or even individuals just messing around on the sidelines. Maybe there was a smaller population within companies that were trying to leverage online learning or online training, virtual training platforms, but COVID sped things up at least 2, 3, maybe even 4 years into the future. There's a lot of good and there's some negative things that have come out of it, but for the most part, it's been good. But it's fascinating to see whole populations embracing, these virtual training platforms.
Yep. Which is funny because
what you're saying there, Josh. I don't know about what's happening in the US, but in the UK, one of the things that a lot of people are struggling with is in the education sector. So whether that be in schools, education, what you would call community vocational education, higher
Yes.
education, a lot of effort was put in the UK back in the 2000 to 2010, and then a lot of the funding was withdrawn, and because everybody said, the politicians said, oh, the teachers will know how to do it, and unfortunately they don't know how to do it. And whereas work-based learning I think is doing some incredible stuff. I do, community vocational education, school education, that still does worry me. Is that the same in the US?
Yeah, so my wife is a kindergarten teacher in public school here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And ironically, we've had conversations about just that. In my career, there was a point where I was doing live online training, but also simultaneously having people in front of me. It's doable, but it's extremely challenging. So my wife and I were having conversations about how to do that with 5-year-olds. It was just wait, adults are hard enough, but you want to go ahead and do this with kids? It's extremely difficult. There's so many different challenges that these teachers face. And I know that for my son, he's in 8th grade, that both the teachers and the students, I think mentally it's extremely challenging. They're under so much pressure with the existing laws, both state and federal, that they have to follow, that in this environment that it's very taxing. It's not the best environment. And even when they do go back to school, when they have to segment populations, or they have to go and shut a school down for 2 weeks, there's no continuity, and so there's these numerous challenges.
It's not just the learning
that schools face.
It's that I would imagine that somebody like you, it's the same as somebody like me. Our children have access to the technology. They have access to laptops. They are able to have access to all these things. They've got access to broadband at home. But what happens to the kids, the young people who don't have that? What happens to them?
Yeah, exactly. You have populations that aren't even looped in on the education, and I think when we take a look back at this period, I mentioned the positives. The everyone's using the technology. Everyone is building mastery around the technology. They're failing forward, which is great. But on the flip side, you're going to have all these tremendous gaps in education that are occurring. They're going to have ramifications down the road. We're going to remember this period for a long time.
Oh, even if we're talking, it's not just the tech. The poor kids, the lack of socialization, the lack of being with each other, playing outside. Who came up with this stupidity? By the way, I'm sorry, I can't help this, but it is stupid, especially with the kids, because kids don't get COVID. They just don't. The numbers don't justify it. It's like 1 in a million. It's almost nothing. And why are we doing this? It doesn't make sense. But aside from that, the kids need that to have that social upbringing, not be in front of a computer all day long. I can imagine what kind of eye damage they'll have in 20 years, because too much staring at a computer isn't even good for us. Imagine what it does to them. It's sort of a bad situation as far as education goes. I think corporate, like you said, is really moving forward. There are some social issues even with corporate, but it seems a lot more people are enjoying the lack of commutes and everything else. So I guess there's the positive. People do like working from home. Not everybody, but a lot of people do like the home atmosphere. And some people are going to the offices. It just depends on the companies and everything else. Like, for example, where we are, we've never shut down ourselves. We've always been going to the office. We're considered, quote unquote, essential because we broadcast and because we work with banking. Okay, good. We'll take it. But other than that, we would have had to work from home, which is a little harder when you're developing media and you're trying to collaborate with people. It's not as easy. Plus, most of our gear is here. So it just makes it. And you know what happened, too, in the video arena, things died. We're near Hollywood. Hollywood died for months. There was no shooting going on anywhere.
Right.
The individual filmmakers and the individual documentation, education, nobody was shooting a thing, almost nothing. So it's interesting that like we have some Canon leases, and at one point we said we're going to have to get a deferment or pay a little slower because we don't have the cash coming in. And they go, well, no one does. And right now, Canon, for example, they're giving away leases for 5 years, no interest. And you just go, wow, that's pretty interesting. By the way, if you're looking to buy a camera, it's a good time right now. Nothing down in 5 years, no interest. So, I mean, there's a lot of ramifications. And I was talking to Lexus. We have a Lexus, and they have cut production by 2/3. In Japan because they don't have enough sales right now. They're just one of many. I mean, they're big enough to I guess support this kind of loss of income, but at one point even the big companies are starting to really feel it. So yeah, it's been interesting, not only from a tech point of view, a social point of view, and everything else. Not to mention what do we have? 40-something million people unemployed. That's a lot of people.
Right.
So. Yeah,
I know who's doing well.
Yeah, who?
Stock agencies.
That's true. Yeah.
I know amazing. That when we're trying to, or when I'm looking for content, because you can't go do a shoot, or it's a limited shoot, or you don't want to record someone on a webcam or whatever the case may be. Yep. You're looking at stock. Using photography or old footage that you had in the can. So people are being very creative as far as their communications these days when they can't go and get live footage or on-site footage.
Yeah, and think about it. What was it, about 5-10 years ago? Stock was dying. Nobody would buy stock. And now it's back to, all of a sudden, they've all come back to life, which is sort of interesting. And it's funny how the cycles go, isn't it? It's one day they're dying, next day they're doing well, and vice versa. So it's very, very interesting. Now, you've been involved.
So, Josh, you said things that learning technologies, e-learning, is doing particularly well at the moment. That's certainly the case in the UK as well. So how do you think the providers are actually helping and supporting, and do you think they're actually fulfilling all the need, or is there still a gap? Is there still a big need out there where people maybe who work in these companies, the industries that the tech folk want to support, don't quite get it yet? Has there been a change of mindset?
Yeah. Well, just to take on that first question, I think that there are tremendous gaps that are out there. You have to keep in mind, when we go back to February of this year, that all companies had game plans in play as far as what they're going to do with their businesses. Then you go into the end of the second quarter, third quarter, massive shifts. You have whole industries disrupted within 1 month. March was insane. I know that for myself personally, I had to shift and support the business at a rapid pace. It was beyond agile. It's a complete blur. And still to this day, you have industries that are trying to read the tea leaves and figure out how can we continue to thrive in this environment? What can we do to shift and change the business? So whatever game plans they had in regards to growing their business or heading in a certain direction or implementing certain technologies, some had to put the pause button on. Others, they had to pivot and go off into a completely different direction. But still, there are tremendous gaps that are out there within these organizations. New skill sets were gained. Others were not paid attention to, just because either new technologies had to be in place, you had to train people on those technologies, they had to go ahead and shift the sales force as far as the way that what was being sold, how they were selling. It's still going on today. So yeah, there's a lot of disruption, but yet I think this is going to give organizations, not just corporations, but public, private schools, colleges, a true sense of how to be nimble as an organization. And when disruption happens again, we've been through it. We know exactly. We have a playbook for it. And so I think you're going to see organizations, they're going to, as far as like the way that they operate, look at short-term goals, look at ways that they can accelerate ideas and move in strategic directions, not on a yearly basis, but maybe even monthly, or definitely within the quarter.
Now,
It's interesting you say that, because obviously we've just been through the 11/11. We celebrate in the UK. We very much celebrate, Armistice Day, the 11th of November. It's a big day in the UK, and that goes back to World War I. And there's been lots and lots of programs on the television about what we learned from the First War, which included the Spanish flu, and then what we also learned from the Second War and how things changed. And this, I know it's going to sound totally crazy, but this is the nearest thing. I know that there's been, Vietnam, there's been all kinds of other conflicts, but this is probably the nearest thing that whole people in countries have been through that compare to anything like what people went through in the two great wars. And the difference and the shifts that made, it makes you then wonder what differences and what shifts that there'll be after this pandemic.
That's a good question.
Get the beer, Josh.
Yeah, that one's you. That one's for you, Josh. So what difference is it going to make to learning?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that relationships and, what we're doing right now during this live show is fantastic. We're still connected in a certain way. But I think that for a lot of folks, that misconnection, even with my peers, even with, I've done many conferences this year, not being with them, not having that mind share. Is a loss.
Yeah. It's funny, and what you're saying is true. Even if you go to the conference and you see the person for 10 minutes, it's 10 minutes. It's at, we got to shake hands, give a hug, whatever, and that's not happening. And it is. I mean, like you said, these kind of venues are great, but I don't think it really replaces being there with the person up front. Now, you did something years ago. You were probably, if not one of the first to actually teach online and teach live classes at the same time. I remember when you started that. I remember the gear you were getting, and we talked about that up front back a long time ago. This is about 20 years ago almost. And we didn't even have the internet yet ready to handle it, but you got it going. And that was interesting. Right. And you said it was tricky. So imagine what we're going through now, where we have more internet, but not everybody has more internet. Like Lesley said, some people don't have any internet. And it's just taking the headache you had back then, making it happen, and just exponentially making it worse.
That's right. Luckily, we have generations that are used to using the camera on the phone
Yep.
and communicating that way. Um, and so people have adapted. They have learned about where to position their camera. They learned about light on the face and all those things that help make a better presentation, a better video in mass. Right. And even I mean, it goes across all generations. I mean, who has not been on a Zoom call during this whole this past year? I think everybody has in some capacity. And so we've all gotten a little bit better as far as utilizing the technology and figuring out what works and doesn't work. And an output of all of this is, I think, companies and individuals that are leveraging these types of platforms are going to be much more strategic about the face-to-face and the value of that versus like what they can do virtually, especially from a cost-saving standpoint. I know it's going to drive a lot of that, but then also in regards to human capital. When are we going to have events, or when am I going to hold that meeting that I really do want to sit down with somebody versus let's just get on a Zoom call? So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Lesley, what are you finding in the UK? Are people enjoying this, or are they longing for more of the human contact?
Oh, definitely longing for the more human contact.
Yep.
Because in the UK we've just started our what they're calling lockdown 2. So everything that had started opening has now shut again, and it's just interesting the way things will play out. I mean, I'm obviously very, very, very used to technology. I used my first computer, I hate to say it, back in 1974, long before the internet was even invented. And as soon as the internet was invented, I had it.
Is that the one you used to crank up, or?
Yeah. I had it. And not only did I have the internet, I was very, very lucky that I lived very close to one of the UK's largest universities. So I had fiber to the premises.
Wow. Oh, interesting.
Wow.
Back in the mid 2000s, I had fiber to the premises, which was incredibly unusual. But that was just, so I've used technology, but I really do miss. So this week, normally I would be, next week I would be attending the Learning Technology Awards, and I would be getting all dressed up in the posh rock and speaking at the from the stage in front of best part of 1,000 people. And tomorrow I'm doing a 2-minute recorded session online.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting, huh? Yeah.
It's different.
It's different.
What will be interesting would be to see the reaction from people. I mean, the organizers have been fantastic. I didn't have to go to them and say, oh, can I do an online session, even though I'm not going to be speaking at the event. They actually approached me. So the organizers approached me and said, Lesley, you always do a session for us, for Learn Appeal, for the charity. We want that to continue. Can you do a recording? We'll get our people involved. Can you do a recording of it tomorrow and give us all an update so we can include it? And in all their PR material that they've sent out, they've said that that's what I'm going to be doing. So, to give the organizers their due, they've been brilliant, but it won't be the same as meeting people, standing up on the stage is one thing.
Yeah.
Going and talking to people at the event, both beforehand and afterwards, after I've done my little spiel, that's very different.
That's Lesley. That's one of the things I truly do miss is my peer interaction. Over the years, I've been blessed to know so many talented individuals in this business, and thinking about just going to a conference and pulling someone aside for 5 minutes and asking them, "Hey, what do you think about this idea?" Or what have you been doing? What have you been working on? And it's like you accelerate. It's like you get so many new ideas. You get so many new ways to get inspired. You get insights as to what everyone's working on, what's happening in the industry. I get some of that. I can still text people, and but just being in front of folks, and you don't know who's going to walk up and join the conversation, and then they have a different outlook on something, and just not getting that dynamic this year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe next year, 2021, baby.
Yeah.
We'll be back at those conferences in front of everybody.
Hopefully 2021, but we've obviously got a very special year in 2022 when potentially our Queen Elizabeth will be having her platinum coronation anniversary.
It's amazing. Very exciting.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe
they're giving us
mid next
Friday
year,
and
end of
Monday.
next year, we're back in the swing of things. I sure hope so.
Yeah, well, I hope so too. But I don't know about you, Rick, but I don't know if you know Josh, but Rick actually came over to the UK to support Learn Appeal and came to one of our events and met loads and loads and loads of people.
It was fun. That was the Learning Technologies Conference, not this January, but 2019. It was nice.
Okay.
Plus, I hadn't been to London in many, many years, 30 years, almost 40 years. So it was really fun going to London. I really enjoyed the city. I thought it was great.
And you met loads of people, and just think, it's highly unlikely that what they've said is there's not going to be an event this year in January, February. They're waiting until June or July.
That's true.
Is it the same in the States? Are they postponing everything?
Yeah. There's no show that I know of coming anytime soon. So.
Yeah, I see some like concerts and some things. People are attempting to have things in the March time frame, but you don't know if they're going to push. You don't know. You don't know. Everyone is trying to be optimistic, and just plan for the best, and we'll see what happens.
And we're dealing with.
So what about COVID then? So where do we go now in future? What have we learned, Josh, from what we've gone through in the last almost 9 months? Maybe 10 months, isn't it? 11 months. What have we learned?
Well, we're not done yet. Right.
We're not done yet.
And so I think one word that comes to mind is resilience, in that it's been for everybody. There are major life events that have been occurring that people have not been able to attend. And so I think this is a different, Lesley, you mentioned war, right? I'm not to get too dramatic, but it's a different kind of war. It's a mental war more than anything. And I think on the other side of this, we are going to appreciate the relationships that we have, the contacts that we have, the face-to-face time that we have, so much more. I've missed so many different things, large things with my family, either because of travel restrictions or it just wasn't safe. It just didn't make sense to have a gathering. We will be better on the other side of this, guaranteed, as a society. And it's because we persevered. We persevered, and we're hopeful for those times that we can get together again. And that's what I look forward to. I look forward to next year. That first oh my God, I can't even. It's going to be electric. The first conference I attend and speak at, and see my friends, and see all those folks trying to improve themselves, and just and see what's happening with the industry. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be like my first conference all over again. At least that's the way it seems like it's going to be.
Yeah. And one thing good is that the human race has an incredible ability to forget everything. So within about a year, if this is over, they'll move on. It'll just move on. And that's good.
There's a lot of creature comforts out there, man.
Yeah. So.
But what about the learning, the e-learning, the learning technology industry? What do you think our industry, our community should take away from this, Josh? You're the video guy, so what should we be taking away from this?
Well, I think there's a lot of technology or video implementation happening just out of necessity, without thinking about like foundational elements or things that should be in place as this is happening. For instance, like I think you're going to have a lot more companies look at video content management systems, and how if they didn't have them in place, they're really going to be kicking themselves in the head saying, wow, I wish we had this in place, so that when we created all these videos and had all these meetings, we could have done all the recordings. The recordings could have been transcribed, all the metadata put in there, and we could have done searchable meetings and lookup, especially for onboarding or whatever. And so I think the output on the other side of this, and probably happening right now, you're having a lot of institutions, a lot of companies who don't have a video content management system looking at it really close. Yep. And if they're not, they should. So for all those folks on LinkedIn, if you're listening and if you're working at a company, you don't have a video content management system, you better be looking close at it.
Get ready. Well, we are out of time, and Josh, as always, we appreciate you coming on and sharing, and have to have you on again soon.
Yeah.
And then for all you people on LinkedIn, actually, any questions in the chat by any chance?
There aren't any. No.
Not today. It's hard when we're doing work hours. People aren't watching as much. But anyway, we've gotten a lot more views since we've been on LinkedIn. It's been actually pretty interesting. So we will see you folks next week back on LinkedIn, and we're also putting the shows up on Facebook, and we are going live at the same time on actually we're going live on Facebook, and we're uploading to YouTube, so you can see the shows wherever you'd like. Anyway, thanks again, Josh, for coming on. Lesley, as always, a pleasure, and we'll see you folks next week on eLearnChat. Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
And we are